If you ask what streamers are aiming for as far as end game setup when it comes to their microphone, they're probably going to tell you it's going to be the Shure SM7B and the GoXLR. Now, what if I told you that to get that style of quality and functionality, you didn't have to spend over $800 to do it? And I can actually tell you how to do it for around $400. What's going on, guys? My name is IMB Paula, or Brandon, and I am here to talk to you about how to get the same kind of quality and functionality from the GoXLR and Shure SM7B setup, but the budget version. Maybe we'll call it the budget version. But I'm gonna show you guys 3 products that you're gonna be able to use to get the exact same functionality out of your setup. So let's go ahead and dive into it. And first, let's go ahead and talk about the microphone, since that's going to set the tone for it. Now, as I go through this video, I have done reviews on every single one of these pieces of hardware. So if you guys want to check out my full review on them, then feel free to look at the description below for the links or the cards that will pop up as I start talking about them. So first things first, let's go and talk about the microphone. Now, the mic I'm going to be recommending is the Rode Pod mic. Now, this thing for $100 is a beast of a microphone. It has an amazing sound quality to it. It has a lot of weight as well as far as build definition. In the video that I actually did as far as the review video with this one, I actually compared it to my SM7B, and I also streamed with it for an entire week after that. Now, for that entire week when I was using this, honestly, most of my community really enjoyed the microphone. They didn't really have any complaints as far as like the audio was much worse or anything like that. I think some people couldn't even really tell that I had a new microphone, and some of them actually liked the way that this sounded better. They felt like it was a little bit more clear and a little bit more bright because it didn't have as much of that bassy kind of like radio podcast like presence, but this mic for $100 will easily do the job. I guess my point is, I don't really know if there's $300 worth of audio quality for the Shure SM7B versus this. So this is gonna be what we're using for a microphone because it's fantastic. Now that people can hear us crystal clear, God, I'm so horrible with these puns. Let's go and dive into the actual interface. So the interface I'm gonna be recommending for this is gonna be the Wave XLR. Now this thing is fantastic, not just because of the preamps and the way that it's actually built, but this thing can do a ton. So this is an interface that has some basic controls on it, from basically a volume knob on the front or a mixer on the front, as well as the mute button that's capacitive on the back of it. But where this thing actually shines is gonna be the software. So the Wavelink software is what's gonna help us kind of take a lot of the control that the GoXLR gives you and actually give it to us in the form of the Wave XLR. Keep in mind, this product is $160, and I forgot to mention, but the microphone is only $100. So right now we're at $260 with the 2 of these. With the actual software, the Wavelink program, you're gonna be able to adjust your individual audio sources. So it's gonna give you the whole mixing and the routing tables that the GoXLR gives you. You can also use it to actually add VSTs. What VSTs are basically just looking at them as plugins. That is gonna be able to give you the ability to go ahead and mix your audio or mix your voice the way that you wanna hear it. You can also get sound effects, such as if you wanna sound like a robot, or if you wanna sound like you have a megaphone that you're speaking through, or that you're auto-tuned like T-Pain. Now, a couple of things that the Wavelink software has that I think the GoXLR is missing is the ability to mix your actual audio between your stream versus what you hear. So if your friend sounds like he's screaming in your ear, or they're screaming in your ear whenever you're playing a video game, but your community is sitting there telling you that they can barely hear them on stream, you can actually adjust those levels individually. This also makes it really easy. So if you want to listen to music, you can actually change it to where the stream doesn't hear it at all when you hear it, or you can make it to where it's loud for the stream and not loud for you in case you don't want to hear audio during a certain gameplay or something like that. It's actually really cool what you can do with this. And again, I think this is a big feature that I think the GoXLR is actually missing, which is kind of surprising because, again, the GoXLR is, I think, still seen as the top of the line audio mixer when it comes to streaming. What's also really cool too is I didn't notice this but with a little bit of research, you can actually use the Wave XLR for a dual PC setup as well. So in case you are going to be setting up a dual PC, do not worry, this thing will be able to handle it, and it's actually super simple how you actually do it. So now that we have our interface to actually make our microphone work with our stream, and we have our ability to go ahead and make that sound the way that we want with VST plugins, and we have mixing through the routing table and stuff like that, there's only one other thing left to introduce to fix this complete trifecta. That is the Stream Deck. That's right, the Elgato Stream Deck. With the Elgato Stream Deck, this is actually gonna be able to give you the ability to change these settings on the fly, which is what the GoXLR allows you to do as well. With the Stream Deck, you can actually go ahead and set it up to where you can increase the volume and decrease the volume on your mixer or on your audio chain. You can also have it to where you can enable these plugins where you can have those voice effects if you'd like to. So if you wanted to have that auto tune, you can do it. You can also get a bleep button effect with this. You can also mute your mic as well, all with the ability to set it up on the actual Stream Deck. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about recording audio on the fly and be able to use that in a sampler? This can actually do that. With the actual Elgato software, you can actually enable this to record audio and also play that audio back as well, which is gonna be the sampler effect that you're basically replacing on the GoXLR. This is probably one of the most recommended tools in most streamers' kits to be able to have. You can also control your OBS with this. You can control your lighting with this as well, your smart lighting if you want to. You can have it clip parts of your channel. You can have it run different commands in case you're using Adobe or anything like that. So this has a ton of functionality to it. And honestly, this is something you probably already own. So now that we actually introduced all three of the components, let's go ahead and run through the actual feature list of what we're trying to compete with here. I'm actually just gonna read it off this list because it's actually quite a bit. We have audio mixing, voice effects, audio routing table, XLR input, sound effects, mute button, bleep button, recording audio on the fly, independent audio control, as well as dual PC stream support. That's right, that's all the features we're trying to compete with these three pieces of hardware for that one. Now, to argue in the favor of the GoXLR, because it's still a fantastic piece of equipment, it's just really expensive, but it's a fantastic piece. With the GoXLR, you do have faders and sliders that you can go ahead and use, which are kind of nice to have that physical aspect to just be able to press those and move them up and down as you want to versus pressing a button over to decrease or increase the volume. And then lastly, the GoXLR, what it has over this setup is that there's a lot more of interface inputs and outputs on the back of the GoXLR. Unfortunately, that is one thing where the Wave XLR is kind of limited. On back of the Wave XLR, you're limited to your XLR input, your headphone jack, and your USB Type-C cable. So that is one area where the GoXLR has a leg up, which for some people that might be a deal breaker depending on what you're trying to do in the future with your stream. But for most, I feel like it's not gonna be a huge deal. So let's go ahead and run it back and look at this. So we're using the Rode Pod mic, which is $100 to replace the Shure SM7B because the sound quality is pretty darn good, especially when it comes down to streaming. You also gotta keep in mind that when you're streaming, your audio is gonna get compressed. So if you're wondering, well, why are you saying that a $100 microphone can replace a $400 microphone? In this application, you're getting so much compression in your audio that it's not gonna make that much of a massive difference. And with those VSTs, you can actually adjust your audio to where you could create more of a boomy, more of a radio presence feel out of the Rode Pod mic, but I feel like it has a pretty darn good presence already. So that's $100. Then we have the Wave XLR, which is $160, which has a clean input and is powerful enough to actually power the Shure SM7B or any other gain-hungry microphone. You also have the ability to control individual audio sources in your computer and change the levels between what you hear versus what your stream hears. You also have the ability to have other voice effects as well with the VST plugin and options that you have there as well, which, mind you, having that flexibility with that software is limitless because it's open to everyone to make the VST plugins. It's not just one company creating it. As we're technically with GoXLR, if GoXLR decides not to add any updates to it, you're stuck with what you have. And then also having the mute button and the bleep button, all that fun stuff. And then lastly, we have the Elgato Stream Deck, which controls all of that stuff on the fly and gives you those physical buttons to make those changes while you're streaming so that way you don't interrupt your broadcast. Which the Stream Deck is $150 if you go with the regular size one, and it is $250 if you go with the XL version. So for a grand total of $410, not including taxes or shipping, you have yourself a setup that could rival a almost $1,000 setup. Think about it, what could you do more with those $400? You could literally get all the equipment, the cables, the mic arms, and everything else you need to hook this stuff up, and it would still be less than just the Shure SM7B and the GoXLR. Now keep in mind too, what's really awesome is that you can get the Wave XLR in the Rode Pod mic, and if you're like, hey, I really like the Shure SM7B, it looks great, it sounds awesome, it's the one microphone whenever I buy it, I don't need to buy any more. Cool, you can buy that further down the road, but the point is that you don't have to go out and spend almost $1,000 to get a end game level setup. You can spend $410 to do it. That's pretty much it for this video. I just want to go ahead and put this idea. Whenever I was actually doing reviews, I thought of this combination and I was like, wow, honestly, more people should be using this combination because I feel like quality is fantastic and honestly it gives you more functionality than what the GoXLR Shure SM7B combo would. Hopefully this helped you guys out. Hopefully this gave you some ideas as far as breaking away from just the norm or what the end game looks like for streamers and kind of figure out what works best for you. But hopefully this helps you out making a decision. I appreciate you guys stopping by and watching the video. If you guys want to help me out for free, go ahead and hit that like button. Make sure to hit subscribe if you guys want more videos like this one as well. And also too, comment in the section down below. Are you still gunning for the Shure SM7B GoXLR combo? Is that what you use now? Would you do something different if you went back and you saw this video? Let me know in that section. I'd really love to know how I can help you out. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Oh, and don't forget too, I also stream as well 3 times a week on Twitch. So if you guys want to come visit me and say hello and ask me some more questions about this setup or any other videos I got on my YouTube channel, I'd really appreciate it. I'll see you later.